As much fun as it is to get on the road and just drive, drivetrain maintenance and service is really important. Rebuilding an automatic transmission or a differential or even replacing them gets expensive. But there's some simple things that we can all do to maintain and improve all the systems in our drivetrain and give them a long, reliable service life. It may not be the most visually stimulating part of your restoration project, but it'll keep it from becoming this. And you got to build your project from the foundation up. Our truck runs great, and under the hood now, it looks great. For the most part, during the test drive, it showed us that the drivetrain is pretty solid. But I want to show you some inspection techniques so that you can have the confidence going forward in building your restoration that your foundation is worth building on top of. All that's going to start with a basic transmission service. We're going to change the fluid and the filter and give it a good inspection while we're in there. And we're going to do a pan upgrade from the LMCTruck catalog to one that has got a drain plug in it to make further maintenance a lot easier. So we're going to get it up in the air on jack stands safely, and I'm going to get the wheels out of the way. Here's a tip. Crack your lug nuts before you jack it up in the air. You get better leverage. The original transmission pan on the 700R4 has no drain on it. It's a messy job. Make sure you have something to absorb spills because it's probably going to happen. That's it. This is not a complicated job, and it's really important to know how to do it yourself. You can save a lot of money and extend the life of your transmission big time. Make sure that you verify what transmission that you have and if it's original to the truck. This is easy using the pictures or guides on the LMCTruck website or catalog. Just match the shape of your pan to the pictures and you'll know what you got. All right, so this is obviously the new pan that we've got, and it has a drain plug, which would make this process a lot simpler. And it's the same size, the same dimension, same transmission. We've also got a new pan gasket and, of course, a new filter. But before we go and put the new filter in, put the pan on and refill the fluid, we're going to take a look at the old fluid. It can tell us a lot about the life of the transmission, about potential wear, as well as the condition of the fluid. First, the color of the fluid. I don't like seeing it that brown. It's still got a little bit of a reddish tint to it, but it's certainly overdue for a fluid fill. So we can take and dump out of the filter, and you're looking in that pan to see any chunks. And I don't. So that's good. Secondly, you want to look at the magnet. There's always a good magnet on the bottom of the transmission pan, and we're actually going to, if we can pull this off, we're going to transfer this to the new pan. But this is where the clutch material gets collected. We can see it there. That's normal. It's clutch material that, just by the nature of how an automatic transmission works, the clutches are going to deteriorate and wear, and that's what this magnet is for. It's supposed to be there to collect that material. So what we're going to do is look at the rest of the pan for anything that doesn't look so great. I don't see any chunks down here. There's a little bit of clutch material down here. It all looks normal. Now, I feel really good about the fact that this transmission shifted well. There's no junk in the bottom of it, so we can go with confidence putting the new pan with the drain plug in it and refilling it with fluid and hoping for a lot more miles. Magnet in the bottom. I've got my orientation of the pan gasket. What I'd like to do with the pan gasket is just put a dab. I'm not totally sealing it, but just enough to kind of give it a little bit of traction, make it stick. Sometimes the gaskets are folded in the packaging, and they don't necessarily like to sit in the right place. So the RTV will hold it down. I'm just going to use the pan bolts to stick it in place. So when I put this up left-handed upside down and blindfolded, like I'm going to have to be, the pan gasket doesn't slip. And of course I'll take these bolts out, but this is just to keep it in place while that RTV grabs and holds on to the gasket. Helps it get the right shape too. Well, that's sitting there. We look at the filter. Here's the new filter, here's the old filter. Exactly the same shape. What's different? This is a gasket that seals the filter, make sure that it maintains pressure. There's no gasket on here. This thing just fell out of the pan. Here's something really important if you're watching this, if you're doing this at home, make sure that you know where that gasket is. You saw the pan, it's not in the pan, so it's up inside the valve body of the transmission. So you got to go on a little bit of an exploratory mission. Before you put your new filter in, get that gasket out of there. That seal has to come out. Otherwise this one won't fully seat and you won't have the right pressure. When you're replacing or reinstalling a transmission pan, lightly thread in all of the bolts, then tighten them from one side to the other so you get an even clamp load. I'm using brake parts cleaner to clean the fluid off the exhaust so it doesn't cook off and stink when we fire the truck back up. We started off with 5 quarts of a synthetic ATF fluid that matches the grade from the owner's manual. We'll check the level once we cycle the truck and get it up to operating temperature. Because we have no idea how long it's been since the rear diff was serviced, it's worth the cost of a gasket and a couple of quarts of lube to be able to check things out and to make sure the lube is fresh and free of any contamination. This is also a messy job, and most OE diff covers have no drain. I don't know why they didn't put one in. Once you've inspected your fluid for metal chunks or debris, you can scrape off any sealer or gasket material to prepare the surfaces for the new gasket. If you do find anything like metal or shavings at the bottom, inspect further. Slowly rotate and inspect the gears where they meet. If you find damage, find a buddy that's a specialist and have them take a look. Ours, like the rest of our drivetrain, just needs fluids, and chances are that's all yours is going to need too. A wire brush does a nice job of cleaning off the cover, and we'll follow that with some brake cleaner to make sure the surface is super clean. I learned this from my buddy Ryan Shand. I use a very thin film of RTV on the surfaces and combine that with the new gasket. A tube of RTV and a diff cover gasket will only cost you about 12 bucks. Adding fluid is simple. You'll find a fill plug on the side. A 3/8 ratchet fits inside the plug to remove it. You can count on at least 2 quarts to refill the differential to the proper level. We're using 75/90 weight synthetic fluid in ours. You'll want to fill it until you can reach inside the plug with your fingertip and touch fluid. Then just replace the plug and you're done. Brake fluid gets old and it actually wears out. 2 different ways. It pulls water in, it gets thinner, and if it gets hot, it decreases the boiling temperature and gets thinner. That way it loses its ability to compress. And I'm thinking that since this is dirty and dark, that's probably why we had a spongy brake pedal. So we're going to do simple brake maintenance, just purge the fluid out, rebleed the brakes with new fluid, and maybe that'll help that spongy pedal. So to bleed the brake system, you've got a couple of options. If you got a buddy, you can do the 2-person method where somebody cracks the bleeder screw and the other person pumps the brakes until you start seeing the clear fluid come through your lines. Pretty simple. If you're by yourself, I work by myself an awful lot, there's 2 different ways to go. You can crack all the bleeder screws and just have it gravity bleed, just keep an eye on the fluid, make sure it doesn't run out. Or you can use a piece of equipment that pressurizes the system from the top down. Either way works great when you're working by yourself, and the water, just in case you spill something, neutralizes the brake fluid and makes sure it doesn't eat your paint. It starts with removing as much of the brake fluid as you can from the master cylinder reservoir. A turkey baster is perfect for this. After wiping out any residue, I'm just refilling the master cylinder back up to the full line on the side. Don't fill it completely to the top. This tool pressurizes the brake system from the top. The reservoir is full of a quart of fluid and it's sealed to the master cylinder reservoir. The amount of fluid that you drain is automatically replaced by the pressure in the reservoir. Connect the catch bottle to the bleeder screw. Crack the bleeder screw off until you see fluid flowing into the bottle. Watch the fluid going down into the bottle until you see it change color. When it changes to the clean fluid, well, you know you've got that line flushed. You always start at the wheel cylinder farthest away from the master cylinder. Then you can retighten the bleeder screw and move on to the next closest cylinder to the master cylinder in the front. Runs, sounds good, nice and smooth. We got a good firm brake pedal too. I love it, yes. Here's reverse, neutral, nice firm shift, and no leaks. Knocking this stuff off the list feels incredible. Brake fluids, transmission pan upgrade, differential fluid. Each individual job is small. They're all really important. They're all links in the chain of restoring a vehicle either back to a good service life, which this one we could put another 100,000 miles on. It's a great running truck. So we could put it back into service. It could be my daily driver. Or we could take it to the next level of a restoration. You've got choices once you build a solid foundation. And that's exactly where we are. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you restore a vehicle? One project at a time. How do you feel good about it? Well, you cross them off the list and each red line is a success. So just keep after it.